It's a quarter to nine at night. The dishes are done. The house is finally quiet, and you open up your laptop not to relax or to buy plane tickets, but because the results are still sitting in your inbox. The portal messages, the refill requests, the prior authorizations, some form that needs to be signed. You finished seeing patients like 6 hours ago, and this part, nobody scheduled it. It just followed you home and waited for you at the kitchen table. The week ends and it's Saturday morning, and you were going to use that day to feel like a person again. You were going to get some rest, but that time also goes to the inbox. That work pile is the real job, not just the 20 patients on the exam table. The work that those 20 patients generate after they leave, after the billable encounter is finished, it all still needs to get done. And whether that work owns your nights, comes down to something that almost nobody looks into before they sign their contract: who handles it and when. I'm Candace Elam, a family nurse practitioner, and this is part 4 of the series on reading the job behind the offer. Today, we're doing a deep dive on the piece of the job that costs you the evenings, costs you the weekends, the work that your visits create after the patients walk out. Here's the thing that the offer never describes. Every visit has two halves: the half that the patient sees and the half that happens after they leave. And that second half is where the extra hours hide. Let me make it visible because the inbox is a small word doing a lot of work. A single visit can leave behind lab results that you have to interpret, act upon, and message the patient about. A prior authorization can turn into this endless phone tree: a couple of refill requests, a referral that needs a note attached, a form, a portal message that becomes 3 messages, a call to close the loop that didn't actually close on its own. Run that across 20 patients, and an ordinary clinic day leaves 1 to 2 hours of work sitting behind it. Here's why that becomes your night and becomes your weekend. You are salaried, and in primary care, that means you sit outside of overtime protection. Your salary covers the role no matter how many hours it takes, and nothing starts a new clock at hour 41. So there's no cost to the employer when the work runs long. If the day has no time built into it for that second half, the work doesn't disappear. It just moves into your evenings and it stacks up for your weekend. So the question was never whether this work exists. It always exists. But who does it and where it sits is the question. There are 3 things to ask about before you accept an offer, and they tell you how a practice handles this second half of the visit and whether it follows you home. The first is where the work lands. In some practices, there is a nurse or a pool that intercepts the results and the messages first and only forwards you the things that actually require medical decision making. In other practices, every result, every message, every refill request drops straight into your inbox by default. These are 2 completely different types of practices, and they probably pay the same exact salary. The first thing to find out is there a layer between you and the inbox, or are you the first stop for everything? The second is whether there's actually time for the second half of the visit. A practice either builds real administrative time into your workday or expects you to fit it around your visits, which ultimately means after the visits on your personal time. That single decision, that single job design choice is the most common difference between logging off at 5 and staying off until the next weekday morning, or logging off at 5 only to come back to log on again at 9 p.m. to finish whatever you couldn't finish during the work hours. The third is who covers this work when you're not there. The work doesn't pause when you're out. Results and refills keep arriving on the weekday that you took off for a dentist appointment or because your water heater broke overnight. The patient portal keeps sending you messages that flow Friday afternoon and over the weekend. Most of it is not really urgent, and it can wait until tomorrow or Monday morning. But every now and again, there is a critical result. Who is handling those urgent matters when the clinic is closed? And who covers you for routine matters when you're on vacation? Like, are you expected to be checking your in basket when you've taken 2 weeks off for your anniversary trip? What happens to your inbox when you're gone tells you whether you really do have time off or this is just a pile that's going to grow until you come back to it. Where it lands and whether there's time for it and who covers it when you're out, that's the shape of it. Whatever a practice tells you about the inbox, a friendly answer in the interview governs nothing. What's written is what governs. So, my get it in writing checklist is the promised versus delivered list that helps you to move what you were told in the interview onto the page before you sign that contract. The link for it is in the description. So, you know what you're aiming at. I'm going to tell you what the well built version looks like. There's a triage layer so that you're not the first stop for every result and every refill request. There is real time on the schedule for the second half of the visit, proportional to your visit volume, not a token 15 minutes against a full day of patients. And there's genuine coverage when you're out so that the pile doesn't grow into a punishment for taking a day off. When those three things are in place, the work gets done while you're on the clock and it stops following you home. Knowing what a good day looks like is one thing, but getting the exact questions that pull the questions out of the employer and knowing how to tell a real answer from a smooth one, that is a harder skill. And it's the part that I don't want you improvising in a live interview. That's where the interview tools in the Chart Smart Careers job selection line are built for. The questions to bring into that interview room and how to interpret what you hear back. I'll point you to them in the description as those products go live. Your job in the room is simpler than reading anyone's mind. It's to find out how the practice handles the second half of the visit to get the answer somewhere where it counts, which is in writing in your contract. Because none of this is on the offer sheet. And all of this is what your typical weeknight is going to look like if you don't find this out ahead of time. And when you've got a real offer in hand, the offer and contract decision kit is where you find out what those answers are actually worth. It teaches you to interpret the administrative time and coverage language in the real contract. And it helps you to see what the hours of the inbox actually add up to in your workday and shows you what the job actually pays once those hours are accounted for. And then you land on a clear decision: accept, negotiate, or decline for that specific job. It's linked below. And if you're watching this from inside of a job that is already burying you in the inbox every night, that's a workflow problem, not a job search one. I'll point you to where you can find those solutions in the description. Next up, how many hands are on your day and why that number decides more about your weeknights than your title does.